Welcome back. This is episode 20 of the Epoch podcast. I am joined with my co-host here, Dread. Welcome.
Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, we're going to be going over our experience in the Multiplayer Invitational. And since Jay is dead sick from playing too much, we have Amarathy here instead.
Hey guys.
Amarathy, thanks for taking time out of your schedule to join us here. I know you're halfway across the world, but I'm glad that we could find a time zone that made everything work.
No worries. I am like 1 week out from quitting my job, so yeah, I'm happy to sneak a little work from home mid work interview out.
That's not quite the introduction that I was expecting, but I like it. Okay, I can appreciate that. No, he's on lunch break. Chat. He's on lunch break. I promise everything is okay.
I am a lunch break. I'll manage my hours. We're good. I'm not doing anything unethical. Okay.
It's okay.
So
it's okay.
This is Sunday evening, my time. This is Monday morning, Amarathy's time. We finished the weekend of the Invitational Multiplayer event. This was like streamers and YouTubers who were invited to come on to the CT server, play some multiplayer, play with people, play solo, just play with the new build of Last Epoch. So this might change before 0.9 official release on March 9th, but yeah, so this is what we have access to right now. We're going to talk about experiences, and I think we've got a pretty good list of topics. We did a lot of experimentation over the past 48 hours or so.
I had a lot of fun.
All right, so I think before we jump into everything, I want to remind people you can find this podcast on YouTube and Spotify if you're not watching it live here on twitch.tv/PerryThePig. We took a big hiatus from the last 19 episodes because we didn't have much to talk about in the world of Last Epoch. But we plan on once again having our weekly cadence of hosting this podcast. So hopefully everything goes well from here on out. Yeah, I guess one more thing to shout out real quick is something that someone just typed in chat, ! Event. We have a Pack the Server event. If you haven't already signed up for it and you're interested in playing some Last Epoch multiplayer, there's 2 events coming up. One is February 2nd. There is a 10,000 people joining in for the Pack the Server event. I'll put some information in the YouTube and Spotify comments so you know what's going on there in case you're not already in the loop. And then there's a free trial of the Last Epoch before 0.9 comes out as well. So that information should be on Reddit, should also be on the official forums at lastepoch.com, but we'll post some extra information so everything knows, just so that everyone knows what's going on. All right, enough of that. What's the first thing we're talking about? Did you have fun? Dread, how is multiplayer? Is it fun? Did you have a good time?
Multiplayer was an absolute blast once we could actually invite people.
It was kind of a pain. We tried to invite each other. It was a little bit awkward for the first 10 minutes.
I mean, throughout the entire time, it was definitely a large game of round robin until we realized that we could all just log out and log back in and everything would work perfectly. We did not know about that tidbit of information. So right now, the actual inviting people is a little buggy here and there. It's fine. But it definitely led to a lot of chaos early on as we were trying to figure out, like, how do we invite you? Oh, well, I'll leave. No, you'll leave. And it was a lot of chaos. But we figured it out eventually. The stars aligned. And as soon as, like, you're in the monolith or in the zones and all that, it's great. I didn't mind the campaign leveling with other people, although the loading screens are, of course, a little long, and that's just because, it's still working on stuff and all that, right? But when we got to Monolith, oh boy, it is so smooth. Monolith multiplayer, like, the loading zones aren't nowhere near as bad as the campaign. You, just load up the Monolith and you go in, and everyone can teleport on top of you. If they, take a while, they can do stuff while you're working on stuff. It is absolutely amazing. The end game portion of the multiplayer experience.
So Amarathy, were you playing alone? You playing with people this weekend? What was your experience?
Yeah, so I did join a few parties here and there. I'm typically someone who would play alone for the most part, but I like just mixing it up every now and again and jumping in. So I did a few campaign runs with different people, and then I tried to join on Jay the Product in his EU server, and I just unfortunately the ping was too much from my Australian brain internet.
Literally the other side of the world. Yeah,
literally the other side of the world. I think it would have been faster to get the internet packets and just fly it over and deliver it to him. in person at some point, which was a bit of a shame. But like, obviously, this is really new, and I would not hold it against EHG to have solved the problem of across the world internet networking smoothness, all that kind of stuff. But I had a lot of fun for the times that I was playing with other Australians, or I had US people in my game, and they seemed to be like, oh yeah, it's actually not too bad.
It's fun. It's funny that you mentioned that you're primarily a solo player. Like to no one's surprise, I also plan on playing Last Epoch solo. I don't know about like account bound or character bound. We'll talk about that later, but I tend to be a solo person. Played a lot of solo and SSF and Path of Exile as well. I was excited for the multiplayer patch for all the other stuff other than literally partying up with people. But I played about 10 or 11 hours of multiplayer along with Dread and a couple of other people who joined our party. It was fun. Like there were complaints about like maybe a couple performance things, like maybe like a build was busted or you couldn't invite to a party. Like there were hiccups that we ran into. But for me, like if the game is fun, we can fix those other things. Like the core gameplay loop of playing with other people is very enjoyable. I like that you can catch up with people. I like that not one person zooming along ahead, even if they have like a bunch of movement skills. No, it's good. I liked it.
Except for shield rush. I mean,
I guess I didn't play with anyone with shield rush, but like even you, Dread, you were playing like a werebear, and you were just like wah 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 wah, and I was keeping up just fine.
Yeah. Like the only problem right now is shield rush allows you to kind of like zoom past, but like just don't play shield rush. It's like whatever, it's fine. Just use lunge like a normal person. It's great. And like one of my favorite moments of the entire stream that we were doing together was when we got to Leath. So we thought it would be a big brain move if we did the second Lagan quest timeline and we like split up and do it, right? Grab them all. And we did not understand what we were like getting ourselves into. And essentially we crashed the instance like 3 times till we realized that we were loading so many mobs by going across everywhere that it just crashed the instance. We had to like literally log out every single time. And that was, I think, the second most favorite moment on the stream. And then the first favorite moment from last weekend was when I was turbo leveling my paladin because I wanted to make a support paladin video, but EHG decided that I was not going to be making one, and I crashed and I was like rolled back 20 levels from like 2 hours before that, and I was like, oh, so I'm not doing this today. I see. So instead I was like, okay, screw that. I'm just going to respec my werebear into something fun. And then all my party members funneled gear into me and we played Meteor Werebear for fun. But that moment was hilarious. I loved it. Like, obviously it's a bug and all that, but it was just really funny at the time. Like, I enjoyed it. It was just like, oh my God.
When you say bug, you mean like accidentally getting rolled back 20 levels?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
I would hope that's not intended.
I'm just making sure, like you said Meteor Werebear. I want people to know that the Meteor Werebear is not a bug. That is a feature. Yeah. It is part of the game.
That is a part of the game.
So before, I think I'm going to use that as a jumping off point for talking about some of the new unique items. So for the people who aren't in the loop, if you don't know, not only is 0.9 going to be multiplayer where you can party with people and play along with them, but there's a bunch of other changes too. So we have new unique items. We have rebalanced unique items. We have 96 out of 114 skills have been changed or rebalanced in some way. So the vast majority of stuff. Not only are like the skills themselves changed, but the mechanics of skills in general, like ailments have been changed. Adaptive damage for throwing and melee has been changed. Touch as well. Conversion mechanics. I want to say like most things are different. It's still Last Epoch. It's still the game that you like know and love, presumably. But like there's a lot of new stuff, and it kind of feels like you're relearning the entire game all over again.
No trade, dead game.
Yeah. So let's talk about new unique items. We do have permission to talk about anything. So apparently there's some super rare items that maybe somebody wants to tell me about, but we'll get to that. Hold on, Dread.
Am I allowed to?
I want to get to it, but I want to talk about Meteor, the cast on crit thing. This item is exciting. I want to know about it. Dread, tell me about the cast on crit belt real quick.
All right. Freaking Amarathy's chuckling
you
there because
say
he knows,
cast
he
on
knows
crit,
Meteor
and then everybody in the
better.
audience is like, wait, what's that? All the Path of Exile players are like, what are you talking about? Cast on crit? Cast on what?
All right, so this patch, okay, this requires a little bit of a story. All right, so when they were doing the choose your own unique kind of thing, where the community was like working on the unique, and we ended up with the Rat City Spear, right? One of the options was a cast on crit spear, and we did not get that choice, but it was so popular that they decided, why not just add it into the game in a different way? And they did, and that's what's called Harbinger of the Stars. It is essentially a belt that allows you on crit to cast a meteor on a nearby enemy. It sucks up the mana cost, and if you're a mage, you can use the skill tree, and if you're not a mage, you can just do other stuff to scale the damage. And essentially, it will suck up your mana like instantly if you're not doing things correctly. But if you're a transform build, you can just use Rage and just have infinite mana. Or if you're playing Mage, you can use Glacier with the medium explosions and the mana refund mechanic. You can do that as well. Rain was doing really well with that. It was really good because it was very consistent and very good in terms of mana, and the damage was there too. Because you get to actually spec the meteor tree. Who would have thought, right? And just this belt in general, if it does not get touched in any foul way, it's going to make a lot of new builds. And I know Amarathy is just bursting at the seams. Go ahead about the belt.
It's gonna get nerfed. I'm sorry, Dread, but that's
I
gonna
know,
get
I
nerfed.
know,
It is
I
it is
know.
way too strong.
Does it have a
was like-
cooldown on it for casting meteor?
No,
I hate ICDs as like a design philosophy. I think they're like kind of a little bit sucky, a little bit lame, because it's just like, oh, this is the most you can do. Like this is like a hard limit, right?
Yeah.
Rather than like reducing a percentage or making it harder to proc it or something like that. But this thing needs an ICD and it needs a low one.
It doesn't have a cooldown for casting meteor on crit. Interesting. All right.
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
think like any of the transforms that can like do like easily get a lot of rage. You think about
Uh-huh.
Sentinel, who in VR just like a few hundred mana as well, and just like hammers, like that's enough crits going onto the screen, and then you just VR like you've got your 700 mana back. And
I think it's balanced on classes outside of Mage other than Primalist because you have to actually care about your mana. But if you're
Yep.
playing Primalist and it like uses your Rage instead, and we all love the new Gardens of Rage amulet, right? Now the problem is I think the best way to nerf the belt and make it like fair would be to just make it so it just doesn't work with rage. It doesn't use rage. Because like I think rage isn't designed with the ideology that infinite spamming meteors is an idea. Right? I think it's balanced on the other classes at least a little bit more. Because like you have to actually care about your mana. Like you have like mana regen or whatever else you're doing, like reversal and stuff like that. But when you have infinite sustain with transforms, it gets a little kooky. Let's put it like that.
I'm just happy that we have a
and
new.
even-
Go ahead, Amarathy.
I was just gonna say, like, even other classes though, they do have like ways to cheat mana. So I talked about VR,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I've talked about like you can do the drain life thing for Acolyte and get a silly amount of
But
mana
it's
that
nowhere
way as
near
well,
as egregious as the transform, specifically, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Those are like
hear ya.
where the belt gets broken.
they're not as good, I think, as they once were because of that Garden Rage change. But yeah, it is what it is. So
I was going to add to this. I'm happy that we have like more really flashy, iconic items being added into the game. So
Yeah.
when I first joined the game, Volcanus was like super iconic. Everybody was playing Volcanus this, Volcanus that, cast on crit, Warpath. Everybody wanted to play it, and then it kind of got nerfed, and no one's really used that sword for anything popular since then. Right now, like one of the flashiest items in the game that everybody wants to use, it's like, I want to play up Mark Spin. I'm going to start Tornado Shot, and I'm going to clear the whole screen using Reign of Winter. And like Reign of Winter is a flashy, iconic item. Even if you're not playing Last Epoch, you probably know what that item is, or at least you've seen it, maybe a Twitch highlight or on YouTube somewhere. So if we have people casting like a meteor on the screen, it's a very flashy visual thing. That's going to get new players like very excited to play Last Epoch, especially if like they thought about the game in the past, but now they want to try it out.
it's very important that like I think a lot of community creators and people who are outspoken about it have talked about power from items, and like you don't really get a lot of power from your items. They're really just there to like boost your defenses, but it doesn't really help offensively. And items like this that really change your build and open that kind of stuff up, as well as the other stuff I'm sure we'll talk about in a second, is actual power, right?
Yeah.
That's like actual like player power in terms of its offense. But you got to be careful that you're not going to take it to the next stage of are we looking at like a D3 PoE level where it's just like the whole screen is just meteors raining down and stuff like that. There's a very similar build in D3, like actually like kind of their meteors or something like that, and it's like you would never cast it itself, but you can proc it from a million things. And
another nerf that they could do to fix it is
let's not fix it so soon. I don't even have it yet.
I mean,
play
bug farm and then come back to me on that. But essentially, what they could do is that they could nerf the damage effectiveness on Meteor itself, and then buff the Meteor tree and Mage, so it's much stronger on Mage, and it's not as ridiculous in the other classes because that 900% added damage effectiveness.
So I think we just want to see.
I know, Dread, this is like your new favorite item because it's the only thing that you've mentioned to me ever since you got it. Amarathy, is there a different unique item that you want to talk about? Like, what's something like new, unique, maybe a changed unique item that really comes to mind for you?
I mean, there's this new ring that's coming out. It's amazing. It makes Rive viable, which I know you love. And
can I preface this? We need some backstory here. So everybody who's played the game, like the CTs who have had access to this build of Last Epoch for a while, they said like, oh, like there's a ring. You should try to chance a ring. You should try to use a Rune of Ascendance on a ring. Maybe there's something out there, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. So apparently there's a ring. It's absurd. It's the level of rarity of Ravenous Void. It's got something to do with stats on it, but I literally don't know what it does. You want to tell me, Amarathy?
I just don't want to get in trouble for it, and I don't want to spoil it for people. So
I'll spoil it for you. I'll do it. All right. TLDR.
All right. If you know it, I'm not a CT. This isn't.
Okay. I have a very broad description of the ring. TLDR. Okay. It has a bunch of all attributes on it. It gives you a bunch of mana regen, movement speed, I think some other stats too. It's a very generic ring, right? And then it gives you, I think, like 10% less damage taken if you have like a certain amount of attributes. I think it's like 200, right? Or is it like 300? 200, right? And
180, but yeah.
180, yeah, it's on. I'm close. It's on the Quicksilver ring base. It just essentially, it's just 10% less damage taken if you have enough attributes, and of course you can earn both of them, and they feed into each other because attributes. And it's essentially just a catch-all, be-all. If you want to be tankier, you can use this ring, but good luck getting LP on it.
Somehow both exciting and also not exciting.
Wait, yeah, I know.
180 of each attribute?
I was very disappointed by this ring. Well, not disappointed by the ring itself. I think it's a great item. I'm just more disappointed by like all the hype that's being generated about it. And it's like 10% less damage taken. I'm like, the problem is the people I was talking to all play Arena. And that's amazing in Arena. But it's like I want to play Monolith. That's where I have fun, right? And I don't need 10% less damage taken. If that's the difference between me dying and me not, then my build is terrible.
So you need 180 total attributes or of each?
Anything. It can be any combo.
Oh, that's achievable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah.
What if you wear two? Double it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they are super rare. So like I think it's like a season goal is to like, get towards them if you're not already using a ring. And even if you don't hit that 180 mark, it still seems like a very good ring. Like 5 to all attributes is like very strong on the silver base, the move speed and stuff like that. And yeah, it's got those kind of like other stats as well. So it's just like it's a cool thing to have, and it's a cool kind of chase item for a season. It's not going to like make or break your build like similar to RV. It's just like this awesome defensive layer on top of it, and kind of gives you, that little bit more to
So Ravenous Void has vitality on it. This ring has vitality on it. This is sounding really good for Devouring Orb.
Yes.
All right. I'm listening. I like it.
I mean, anything. They've been adding a lot of attribute stacking stuff this patch, if you haven't noticed.
Yeah, definitely. For all the skills that I popped open. Like, we don't have the patch notes, only the CTs, only the developers have the patch notes. We've been told that the patch notes are apparently 70 pages long.
No, that's the dev notes, internal dev notes. That's not
everything that we know right now is just coming from opening the game and reading stuff.
I do actually want to bring something up real quick.
Mhm.
I want to like talk about this for a second to backtrack. So me and Raven Crow were having a conversation in Twitch chat. And I just want to like talk about it a little bit more. Also, Last Lobs asked the question: do you think these items are healthy for the game? So my problem right now with caring too much about balance is the entire game isn't done yet, right?
Mm.
Like, how are we supposed to know if an item now, like the meteor belt, is actually overpowered for the game and the overall health of the game if we don't have everything, right? Obviously, we have the base of everything, right? But the meteor belt could be like slim pickings in comparison to like everything else. Like the obviously it's not. It's really overpowered. Like don't get me wrong, it is overpowered and it probably will get nerfed and yada yada yada. But what I mean is caring too much about balance in this moment would lead to a lot of less fun stuff overall. Like Perry, like specifically
Mhm.
with you, the static orb change from the orbit being removed, right? Remember that? That led to a lot less fun because balance was their priority, right? No one, they didn't want orbit static orb, right? It was really strong clearing monos and stuff like that. And stuff like that is what happens when we care a little bit too much about balance and not enough about just getting the game finished, you know?
Mm.
At least that's my opinion on that. Like I think a lot of people care way too much about that right now because like let's just have fun. Like who cares if you spew out a bunch of meteors right now? We're just having fun. Like we're just helping test the game, we're having fun.
My
I just feel like people are too serious about it.
my
It's an
example for
RPG. We're
that.
doing crazy stuff all the time, right?
My example for that, I like pointing to the unique idol that one by one. What's it called? Solidarity, I think.
Singularity.
Singular. I always get it wrong. Singularity says like you cannot crit, and then like generically it gives you like it's
Well,
8 to 20% more damage.
Yeah.
Mm.
And like to me, the damage number on Singularity is not big enough to inspire anyone to experiment with it. Like
Yeah.
it's like the bare minimum of okay, and like it's really not a good item to me.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think
Um,
Singularity would be fine if you could have at least a few of them instead of just one. So it's not
Maybe,
like a
but like
big power
what I really
spike,
want
you
is
know?
like whether there's like multiple of them or just one of them. I want that number to be like 70 or 80, just like 80% more damage, but you can't crit. Like whole like that makes you want to experiment and learn about the game and explore all these new builds. So I would rather an item come out a little bit too strong so that people branch out and try new things, and then it gets trimmed off from there. If you release something and it's like almost pre-nerfed, you're never going to generate hype. You're never going to have those people who dig in there and perform science and run experiments and figure out what they want to do unless it's exciting, unless people want to use
Yeah.
it. So.
Like if the game isn't fun, no one's gonna play it, guys. Like
For sure. I think when it comes to balance, there's probably two aspects, which is just making sure that the damage that people are doing are kind of within the same order of magnitude. And it's probably good that the ailments did lose a modifier, particularly poison, because that's like that's doing tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions in some cases.
Yeah.
And there are like a few other ones, while crit builds are like probably, I don't know, like 2 mil DPS is the best, and that's still pretty crazy with like crit hammers or something like that. And then everything else is kind of doing like 500k to like a mil at like a good gearing level. So just making sure that they're on the kind of like the same level. And then we need to also start factoring in what does an end game look like. If the highest damage thing in the game is like disintegrate, but it feels absolutely shit to play, right?
play. Yeah.
Who cares when you've got like a locust swarm or a judgment paladin just running through the map and like instantly killing 90% of mobs it runs over, and then maybe like staying for 2 seconds to kill the rare or something like that, or just keep running past, because that clear speed is an actual metric as opposed to its DPS.
Yeah. Because people forget this is an ARPG after all. Like it's not
Yeah.
like a MOBA. It's not like a competitive game. Sure, there are competitive aspects in certain parts of the game, but that's not what it's supposed to be at its core, right? Like nobody like I'm gonna be honest, I think 99% of people look at ARPGs and like, I just want to have fun.
Yeah.
You're supposed to start out weak and you're supposed to end up strong. You're supposed to blow things up. Like once your build feels good, like you got to go use it. You got to go use the thing that you build.
Unless you're
I
playing.
want to see those red bars go down, and I want to keep moving fast and see more red bars going down faster.
So
Yeah.
I guess I want to talk about one more unique item. This is something that Amarathy brought up a couple minutes ago, saying like we complained about items not having enough power on them. Like
They're
normally
fixing
when you
that,
gear
by
on
the
the
way.
live server, like you're gearing life and resistance and maybe strength and attributes and stuff, but you're not really getting the majority of the damage from your gear because your gear has increased damage, which is all the same pool of damage, as opposed to the more damage multipliers, which by and large are all coming from the skill tree. So that's the current thing on live. One of the changes that I saw pop up, somebody actually spoiled it for me. They told me like how it was going to be, but we found it later on. So there's a unique item that's really popular. It's a 2x2 unique idol that drops from Argentus, and it's a Throne of Ambition. And it used to give % increased damage and % increased armor per stack when you were hitting and killing monsters. So now what it does, I guess it's only hitting monsters, not killing monsters. So now what it does is instead of 20% increased damage and 20% increased armor, it now gives 2% more.
Up to 40%.
Up to 40%. Yep. So the big difference there is like, well, if you don't have the increased armor, if you don't have the flat armor, then the more armor isn't really going to benefit you. If you don't have the % increased damage, okay, you probably have the % increased damage, but you get to use this thing and you get to farm it up, and it's really noticeable once you have it. And to me, that's a really nice change. I like that instead of 20% increase, it's 2% more. Like that's, I think it's really, really good change. I haven't used it personally though.
I think it's a good change because I was an advocate of putting Throne on every build, right? Back in the day, because 200% increased armor when you had 800 flat, that tripled your armor, right? And it just tripled your armor. Like on every single build in existence. And you're playing an armor stacking build, it was still just as good. And like increased damage is great, but mostly most people use it on armor. Now you have to actually build around the thing to actually get the benefit, at least a lot more than before, where it was just slap it on. And I think that is way more healthy to the game in general, because I think lightning as a damage source right now is really above tier than the other damage sources right now, and just generically. So just Throne of Ambition existing makes up for the fact that shock exists, right? Kind of like that, where there's like a balance between the three elements now. I think it's fine. Obviously, it could get nerfed to 20%. It'd still be insanely strong as an idol, right? Like that's like the thing is like you could change it to like you get half the effect, and it would still be worth it on any build that uses that kind of stuff. Like 20% more damage. You don't get that in a lot of places, especially on gear, until this patch.
I would love to see more of it. I kind of want to see more unique idols. Like,
I agree.
2,
I'm
and
sure
one
they
of them
have
is
a
like an
lot
enormous.
down the
I guess
pipeline.
we have 3. I was gonna say we have 2 and one's an enormous meme. We have 3, and 2 of them are enormous memes.
I swear when we get meteor, like I swear when we get like a big fire like boulder spell for druid, that spell will be useful. I swear. I mean the Trinity of Flames will be useful. One unique I really wanted to point out that I'm gonna be playing with next week. It's called shoot. It's the offhand with spark charges. What is it called?
Oh,
Let me find it. I think it's in here in your Discord.
I've
I
got
think
it
there's
right
the list.
here. Fragment of the Enigma.
Yeah, Fragment of the Enigma. So if you don't know what this does, I'll link this image in chat here. Give me a second so you guys can see all the uniques while we're talking about them. And I'll leave this link in the description of the video as well. But essentially what this does is it gives you 2 flat lightning per intelligence for spark charges specifically. It gives you a gigantic amount of increased spark charge explosion area, like up to 240%. 92% more spark charge, 92% more damage for spark charges applied by melee attacks. And then, of course, +1 to lightning skills. And then at the last line, when you cast teleport, you apply a spark charge to all enemies around the destination. Now, what I really like about this unique, and uniques like Harbinger of Storms and Harbinger of Stars and stuff like that, is this has multiple use cases. So the first use case is if you're just playing a spark charge mage build like sorcerer, you get the 2 flat lightning per intelligence. That's good enough to scale. Like that's good, right? You can play a whole build built around that. And of course the increased area is great too. It makes you want to play spark charges, but it also has the line of 92% more damage for spark charges applied by melee attacks, meaning that spark charge melee with like mana strike and surge is just as comparable, if not just as good as the sorcerer version, right? They're different, and it allows it to be used on different builds. Like technically, this could be used on a class outside of mage, right? Like, because if you look at it, it's just a unique catalyst, right? You could use this anywhere. If you had a reason to do spark charges on Acolyte for some reason, you could use it there. And that's what I love about uniques like this versus uniques, versus like specific uniques like Gel Course, where
So does spark charges benefit from adaptive damage?
yes, they do.
I'm going to use that as a nice little segue here for the next thing to talk about. Wait a minute. You know,
What
it's
are we
funny.
gonna talk
Before
about?
this podcast started, Dredd told me that like his throat hurts and he didn't know how much he was going to talk. As soon as you get Dredd talking about Last Epoch, he's like, "How? What? No, that? No, I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to talk for the next 2 hours."
Sorry, I'm sorry.
I want to talk about unique items because they're really fun, but we're not going to talk about every single one. I also want to talk about like strong stuff, builds, interactions, skills that we've been messing around with. And I want to address this because it's the first thing that I saw. When I started poking around, like what should we do? What should we do? I saw that Soul Feast still gives you a bunch of armor. I thought that was cool. I saw the Thorn Totem still has some interactions with the number of poisons that are stacked on an enemy. That's good. So I checked a couple things. And then somebody brought this to my attention that Rip Blood as an Acolyte skill, which builds intelligence for spark charges, by the way, you used to gain % increased damage per enemy hit by your Rip Bloods recently. And now it's flat damage. And apparently you get like 200 adaptive damage, which is global. It doesn't only apply to Rip Blood. Holy moly, who thought that was okay?
Yeah, let's just repeal like the last like 5 patches worth of nerfs to Lich in one go. Let's go, let's go.
So
Lich is
that's
looking
the
very
first
strong.
thing that I found out about that's strong as hell. Dredd, is there something that you found that was like totally busted?
Totally busted. Support Paladin. Just itself. Just itself. Literally itself. There's a node in Javelin. You can turn it into like the aura thing, and it gives you and your allies standing in it 4% increased damage and armor per point of attunement. And since you're playing a paladin, you can get a lot of attunement. And I'm sure you could very easily break 100 if you get some LP items and stuff and some exalted stuff. And that is 400% increased damage to anyone who's standing in it. And
Along with your sigils
400%
and your
increased
volatile
armor.
reversal and your holy aura, sure.
Just like I'm not even gonna talk like that. That's everything on top of that. But just Javelin alone itself, like
All right.
your friend's playing a melee build, you throw it on the boss. There you go. Now you're immortal and you deal a lot more damage.
And Amarathy, I know that you're a CT, so you've had a lot more time to experiment than we have. But like, is there a skill or something that you want to call out that's like this should probably be nerfed, but we can talk about it right now because it's crazy strong?
Tarek knows exactly.
Yeah, the healing too.
Yeah, it's not just the healing; it's the fact that you can play the Judgment right, and that is like one of the highest damage, like screen-wide persistent AOE abilities that you can do, and you can just put this on, volatile reversal all your mana back, and just shield rush through it, and you are still playing a support paladin because you're stacking attunement, you're stacking healing effectiveness, and
yeah, the gloves. If we're gonna talk about things that
this is specifically the gloves you're talking about, right?
Yeah, the gloves. The gloves. You just play support paladin, but like you are the highest. You're also the carry. You're the carry support paladin.
The support carry, sure. I used to play Lux. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think for those gloves, I think if they just made it so it didn't work for Consecrated Aura and it just worked for the melee attack, they would be interesting and create a new build because you'd either play Aura Paladin by itself or you'd play Judgment hit Paladin with the gloves. I think that would be way more healthy.
Let's make sure that the people who weren't here know what we're talking about. What are these gloves? There's some kind of Judgment glove.
I'll let you do it, Amarathy.
Yeah, okay. So I think they're actually cool kind of gloves by design, right? It just seems like a tuning thing. So basically there's 2 conditions on them and that are of interest, which is you need to be unarmed, so no weapon in your like main hand or offhand slot. You can use
I
a shield.
DM'd it to Amarathy.
Yeah, no, I've got it up.
You use a shield, right?
You can do a shield. Yeah.
Okay,
or a catalyst.
And you get 3 fire damage per attunement for judgment effectively, and that includes both like your melee and your spell damage, as well as increased area per attunement, or 2% increased area per attunement. So if you get like, let's say you're about 100 attunement would be a fair mark for like a fairly geared, got a few legendary items paladin, right? That's like 200% increased area and 300 flat for both the melee and the spell version, which is a shit ton. And and then you've got like some cooldown recovery speed for judgment. You've got some you just get a free 25% fire pen, or sorry, up to 24% fire pen. And they're on Crusader gauntlets, which are great because they've got the void resistance and stuff like that. So yeah, no, like it's really, really strong. It's got some mana cost reduction as well. So you, like, if you do want to like not play the Pious version, that's fantastic. I think the issue is more about judgment and how that's working with like stuff like the
Yeah.
Pious consuming all your mana, and you're having just like a shit ton of mana
I
to
I
do like 600%
legitimately
more damage. Or
I legitimately think that this was a mistake, that they forgot to add the line that this is just supposed to be for the melee attack. Like, I think they just forgot that the aura, like, because like this like as soon as I saw the gloves, I was like, there's no way that this made it. Like we're talking about the harbinger of the stars needs to be get nerfed and all this and all that. I'm like, these are the gloves that need to get nerfed.
I also have like
think it's
3
kinda cool
copies of
to
these
do.
gloves. Like they're pretty common gloves. They're like level 20 unique or something.
24.
24. Yeah. Just,
I
like,
have
put
3
them
of
on,
them.
You get them before you get
within
judgment.
an hour of gameplay. Put them on, done.
Yep. I was leveling with them, and like I was kind of just doing the Holy Trail stuff. As soon as I put them on and just like spec'd into Judgment, like just I breezed through it. Like it's the fastest leveling experience I've ever done. I was like from like 35 to 80 within like it almost felt like an hour. It was just that quick. It was insane.
Kind of feel like I'm missing out by not having played this item, but
I mean, next week.
So next week I'll play it. I was like, man, I kind of want to play this.
February 2nd.
I have to experiment with it for educational purposes so that I have the experience. So I have to play this build. You don't understand.
You have to. I think one of the more interesting items that I'm seeing is probably like the Ghostmaker, the Wraith kind of Infernal Shade, because it's like there's so many items around this at the moment, and I feel that now that like it can actually work as a set with like maybe the Lich's Envy actual set, to like just have a lot of Wraiths, a lot of pumped up Infernal Shade damage, and a lot of Dread Shade interactions. I think there's like a lot of fun stuff going on there. That's the
Wraith item you're talking about. It had like melee Wraith damage on it or something. Like you're not playing the same stationary thing.
It's basically the most interesting line of it is that you have up to I think 65% more Infernal Shade damage per active Wraith against bosses and rares.
64% more, yeah. It's
64.
Yeah, it's
64.
disgusting.
So with a cap of what would be 6 Wraiths, or I think you can get a few more in the tree if you do go that route, like 360% more damage for Infernal Shade. You look at like the Lich's Envy, where you're getting a lot of flat per like Dread Shade for Infernal Shade. The dagger can help just like if your Wraiths kill something, they will just like have a chance to cast Infernal Shade on an enemy or on themselves if you've got it set up that way. And they like Wraiths can kill things and summon more Wraiths as well. So like there's a lot of like proliferation.
Essentially, it's a one-stop shop. Like you could just put it on, play Infernal Shade, and as long as you cast like Wraiths on single target, I think you could literally just play Infernal Shade now. I think Infernal Shade, like literally this item alone, is enough to make Infernal Shade work, and I can't wait to play it.
It's funny.
I'm messing about with that, but yeah.
One of the things that was a complaint in Path of Exile for a long time was like instead of fixing a skill, they just introduced a threshold jewel for it, which meant that in order to like actually play Frostblades or play Ice Shot or something, you just put on the threshold jewel because that's part of the skill. So you had to make sacrifices just to play the skill to begin with, instead of the skill being okay. So like Infernal Shade is not a great skill. It's almost okay, maybe in some circumstances, but it's pretty low tier compared to the other things going on in the last Epoch right now. Is this the way to fix Infernal Shade?
Yes,
to give it 300% more damage on an item? Or would you rather like the skill tree gets a little buff?
I mean, I would rather the dagger give you like maybe 5% more damage per Wraith, and then have like, the skill itself do enough damage to stand on its own,
Mhm.
that would be more preferable. But if this is the route they want to go, like I'm fine with having ridiculous, stupid items in the game. If like we said earlier, we were complaining about itemization, weren't we, Amarathy?
Like
Like
Yeah.
this is
this is a new and
itemization.
exciting
right?
thing. I just don't know if it's going to be new and exciting a year from now. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be exciting to play Infernal Shade for like 5 minutes. It'll be great.
I think it's cool to open up a lot of build ideas around it without necessarily detracting from it. And similar to like the Meteor build, right? It's like not a lot of people are playing Meteor at the moment, and not a lot of people
Yeah.
are playing Infernal Shade. And this is just an item that helps bring it out into like a top tier sense, while like accomplishing a goal, right? So I think
Yeah.
there is some health in that, but there needs to be a lot of items, because if we're having power come from items, there needs to be a lot of choice. Otherwise, it's like you want to play Infernal Shade, you have to use this dagger. This is the only way to play
Yeah.
Infernal Shade.
To have an opportunity cost, you need more opportunities.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
need
and
more.
that's-
You need more strong items.
That's why I like the idea of making Hands of Judgment only work with the hit version of Judgment, because then like it gives you a way of making Judgment hit your main skill instead of just being a support skill or being the aura skill, right? Like it's literally just to bonk things, and that's like I've been wanting to play hit Judgment for so long, and it's just been kind of bega for a very long time. And this is the kind of thing to make it work. But guess what? I don't want to play hit Judgment, because guess what? Consecrated Aura Judgment's just so much better.
Yep. And it's better quality of life as well. And that shouldn't be the case. That the highest damage is the highest quality of life.
So we're
Mhm.
talking about like the busted skills, itemization, combos that we found over this past weekend, and a little bit longer than that for Amarathy. I want to move on to another topic. Is there anything else like totally insane that should be buffed, or sorry, not buffed, that should be like removed or toned down in some way? Like anything that people want to know about? What are the cool, exciting things that people are doing right now?
Actually, I want to answer a question we got in chat here, because it is very important for this discussion. Because if we're adding power, what about the game becoming more powerful, right? It's Last Lobs here. As he said, if they're adding these items, do you think the content coming out will be that much harder to make up for the fact that these items exist? And this is the conversation about like power creep, right? Like we get stronger, they get stronger, and then like if we get too strong and they get too strong, then we leave things behind. Like who cares about Tempest Strike when everyone's running around with Hands of Judgment? Like stuff like that, right? And well, I want to hear your thought about it, Amarathy.
I reflect on it in the sense of that I think that there should be incentive for damage in the game that there currently isn't, unless you've got like a build that can deal damage at a very safe and just kill things before they are able to attack you. For the most part, it's just go for defense as much as possible. Compare that to like the Diablo 3 Greater Rift system, where you like want to clear a rift, but you are on a time limit, and the way the monster HP it scales up like a stupid exponential graph, right? But you need a certain amount of damage to be able to do that, and that's usually the limiting factor more than the actual like defensive component. That's still important, but like this is kind of how you deal with it, right? So I think there needs to be some incentive to have good damage and not just like kind of average damage build defensively as possible.
Worth noting that the current meta for Arena, which is like kind of the hardest thing in Last Epoch right now, the current meta is to build a ton of defense and then have a little bit of damage, just like Amarathy said right there. Like just enough damage to skate by, but as long as you're not dying, there's no time limit currently, so you can just like wait out the monsters and not die.
And you look at the you look at the builds that particularly like the ones Lizards push, right? You've got Marrow Shards, you've got like Frostbite Shaman, right? I think you had another Lich one, I can't remember, but they all deal a high amount of damage, not insane like boss killing damage billions. It's just like heavy crit, so upfront burst damage at a range. Like Frostbite is just pretty crazy anyway, so it kind of deals that, and it has the CC built into it. So you're not getting exposed to that damage, and that's why that is like a very that build is always going to do well in Arena, because it can deal damage before the Ospreys, Meteor Chickens are actually casting, right? As opposed to a melee build that would have to like go up there and actually deal with that threat. And also there's no real damage check. So as long as you can kind of do that burst damage and meet, kill 90% of the monsters in one hit, then that's all you need. Just build as defensively as possible from there.
90% of the monsters in one hit. Abomination would like to know your location.
All right, let's move on to another topic. I want to make sure that we talk about some of the multiplayer stuff, because this was the Multiplayer Invitational, not just the busted items and busted build invitational. So to talk about the multiplayer stuff, we could talk about what being in a party felt like, what trade felt like, what maybe like alternate leveling techniques felt like. Dread, I want to talk about this first because you and I were just talking about it before I turned on the stream today. So we were talking about alternative leveling, and a very common complaint that you hear in action RPGs, which is like, I want to make a new character, but I don't want to level my alt through the campaign again, going through everything that I've mindlessly done before. So there's something you can do with a mastery. Do you want to tell us about that?
All right. So currently, as it stands in the current game, and this has been okayed by the devs, they're like, this is intentional. Essentially, there's almost no checks and balances in terms of the required progression your character needs to be in a certain zone, right? So, for instance, you can make a fresh character, get an invite from a person in the party, and get to end of time. And not only will you be able to choose your mastery at level 1, you'll also be boosted to level 5 because the XP for completing the quest of getting to the end of time will boost you to level 5. Now, this is not the only thing that you can do. There's a lot of other things you can do. In Monolith, I can essentially take a level 5 character, put him in my party. Since there's no XP penalty, he can just kind of stand behind me and just try to not get in the way. And if he dies, it's fine. He just spawns back in because there's no penalty, right? Sure, he doesn't get the loot, but it's not as if he's going to put it on, right? And every single time he dies, he just comes back in, abuses the what is it called, the grace period, and he just gets a bunch of XP. Sure, it's penalized, right? He's only getting +5 to level the zone, but monoliths in general are a lot more dense than in of course the campaign. The campaign has the lowest density in the entire game. You see a monster here, there, Ted's over there, Sally's over here, but in Monolith it's 5,000 spiders or 6 diamond matrons and stuff like that. And that makes it so it's really fast to level someone up. It took me about an hour to bring someone, I think even less than an hour, 30 minutes or something, to bring someone from level 5 to level 45. It was very amusing because I was an empowered monolith and killing stuff. And not only that, you can also let people join you in the monolith, and you can unlock the monoliths all the way up to the 90 ones, right? You hop into a zone, you hop into the waypoint, you have the person join you, you do one mono, bam, unlocked. Next one, unlocked. Next one, unlocked. You can do that
to be
for
clear,
all of
that
them.
doesn't mean you're completing the monolith. That just means you've unlocked
You
it,
just do
so you
one
can TP
monolith.
there in the future.
Yeah, you unlock it. And then, of course, you do the 3 level 90 ones real quick, one thing, and then you can finish those level 90 ones, and they have empowereds unlocked as well. And they have everything unlocked in maybe an hour or so. And as long as they're high enough level, yada yada yada, and all that.
I want to give a little bit of context before we dive into this. So if I were going to start a level 1 character and play for about an hour, I would be about level 19 or level 20. But you got someone from level 5 to 40 in about an hour.
Yeah, you got to be a little intelligent about it though. Going for arena echoes and stuff like that is the best way because the most trash stuff like that. Normally it's bad for monolith progression, but if you just need a bunch of monsters to kill, that's the place to go because you just care about the number of monsters. You don't care about the quality of them because you just want to just boost them up instantly.
Well, arena
maybe
leveling
half
used
an
to
hour
be
to
a
think
thing.
about this, but I mean, I like it. I think this is cool.
I absolutely love it. I'll be honest, I think it's one of the best things about multiplayer in general. If you don't want to care about the busing stuff and all that, go play solo. That's what that's there for.
I love solo. Solo's great. Amarathy, I cut you off. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just kind of reflecting on some of the stuff the chat was saying, which is it's inevitable, right? There's always going to be a power leveling system. I just make sure that it's not D3. You just you need to look for a power leveler, and then you just need to stand at the entrance of a zone while someone clears it for you. I think make it a little bit more interactive, which would be good.
Oh, it is.
And
There's like
yeah,
a radius that you have to be
yeah.
within your party.
So you need
Yeah.
to be following, and it's not super fast. Like okay, 5 to 45, that's still pretty fast, but it's not like 5 to 100 plus 1,000 Paragon points in an hour, or something stupid like that, right?
Yeah.
It's
I
yeah.
mean, if we're to talk about egregious ones, at least we don't have to buy WoW tokens.
Yeah.
I
And
can't
I
buy
want
a
to see
level 90
what
character.
I want to see what happens in arena. Like if you can get someone who's got like a key of memory at like arena way 300 just waiting, if that can like boost someone from like 1 to 100 in like a matter of seconds just to the density and the XP
That's
modifiers
a
and stuff
great
like
thing
that.
to check.
So
We can't check
that
that right now because
actually,
arena's disabled, but
yeah.
that's
Well,
Yeah.
that
like
That'd be interesting.
actually, that doesn't work because the problem is right now, right? As Tarek said as well, the XP books they do scale with your level, so you can't just like bring him into an XP book and like bam, bam, bam. Now, the reason why it's balanced, okay, it is actually I know it doesn't sound balanced, but it's actually insanely balanced. I really like how they went about this. I think this is the case still, but you can only gain XP as if you were 5 levels above you, right? So if you're like a level 10 character and you're in a level 20 zone, you killing things will be like as if you're killing level 15 monsters, right? Or yada yada yada. And that works in the monolith as well. If you're level 5 and I'm in a level 80 zone, right? You'll be getting XP like as if it's level 10. The only reason it's faster is because there's just more density in the monoliths versus the campaign. And of course, you're instead of like clicking on quests and doing that, you're just constantly killing monsters, right? And it's just like speedy, speedy. I think that's the case still. I know some people were talking about stuff in that regard. I don't know if that's the case, but it seems like that's the case because he didn't like we didn't bring him in the mono and he was like instantly like level 20 or whatever after killing one mob. It still took time. It's the same amount of time you would take if you just took your character and went into a zone that's higher. It's just it's faster because I'm doing the killing. You're not.
Yeah, and the thing I was going to say though is that the arena's actually got an increased scaling on it for whatever wave it is. So like at wave 200, you're getting about like 300% more increased XP, which that may go on top of the +5 levels. Like that may be the
Yeah,
base amount,
yeah.
right? But this be like a multiplier on it, so could be pretty crazy if that's not addressed. So arenas apparently. I don't know what's going on with Arena.
Arena
They've
is
talked
not
about
current
yeah.
was not in the live thing, so we could not test it.
we don't
And
really know anything
yeah.
about arena.
Yeah.
But what we do know about is we got a little bit of information about how the dungeons work. We've seen some people chaining dungeons over and over. We've seen some people doing lightless arbor and trying to spend some money there when they've got like a full party of 4. And we've seen people do their runs with killing Julra and trying to get some LP unique items. Dread, do you have any first-hand experience with that?
So the first thing I'm going to bring up, this was very amusing. So this was a moment on stream that we had. We were playing, and we wanted to do the Soulfire dungeon, the Soulfire Bastion, because we wanted to farm for the Harbinger of the Stars for me, because that's what we were looking for, right? Now that's what I was looking for. I was like buying belts and stuff like that, and Tears of the Forest as well, because it's like a little item level. Now you can't trade stuff that you gamble from the Soul Gambler, right? So you can't do that. So that's not broken in any way. You can't trade the items. So it's like it's actually I don't know if it's not superior to doing it by yourself essentially, unless if like you're getting carried by like a good build or something like that. But yeah, we're doing that, and there is currently a bug, and I'm like, so if you're in a party of 4 or whatever, and you enter a zone and it takes too long for you to load, you will get split up into different instances. So, for instance, we had 2 people split into one instance and 2 people split in the other. Now, it's funny because what we were talking about right before that happened was we were talking about the instance when me and Perry were crashing instances by splitting up. And we're like, oh no, guys, let's not split up, gang. Like, like Scooby Doo, like, ooh, And we didn't do that. And we went through the portal and we instantly got split up. And we're like, what the heck? We were just talking about it. And then for some reason, our instance, all of the walls for the Soulfire Bastion, the walls, they were deleted. They were gone. It was like as if there was no walls in the entire Soulfire Bastion. And I'm
Are you
gonna
sure
tell
that's a
you,
bug? Because we've been complaining
Yes.
about that a lot.
it's a bug. It's a bug, sadly.
Can we not
It
complain about that
shouldn't
one
be a
and
bug.
just?
I know,
It's
I know.
actually a feature.
No, I want to say this for feedback. The Soulfire Bastion becomes 20,000 times more enjoyable when the walls aren't there. Like, it is so much more enjoyable. It's not like faster because you're still like running with your head cut off trying to figure out where the doors are, but it's way more fun and way less annoying, a lot less backtracking and stuff. But then the two parties, we finished our zones, right? Went into the next one to the boss room. We're like right back up with each other.
You
We're
joined
good.
back up.
Yep.
Oh,
And then we did the boss, right? And we all get in there. But for some reason, there's a bug that makes him spawn right next to the door instead of over in his usual spot he is. So he's right next to the door as soon as you walk in. And then, like, of course, he's like level 45 and he instantly gets murdered. The Soulfire Bastion has some stuff going on. But other than that, it's great. Please remove the walls, please. Thank you.
yep.
So I'm gonna put in my 2 cents because my first-hand experience with dungeons, I was doing a couple of Jura runs in the Temporal Sanctum. It wasn't too much multiplayer because the person that I was playing with after all of our dungeon runs died each time that we were doing a dungeon run. He was busy like watching YouTube on his second monitor. He wasn't having a great time. So my multiplayer experience in the dungeons is a little bit limited. But Amarathy, I got to ask you, what was your experience? Any of the dungeons?
I did not do them in any other multiplayer.
I can tell you all the
Or
other ones
contribute.
if you want. I did the other ones.
All right, tell me about Lightless Arbor. I've heard a couple stories about Lightless Arbor. but
Actually,
yeah,
I want to do
what's going
one
on there?
tidbit about so this is gonna be a little tidbit.
Sure.
Right now, for some reason, because the ailment change, poison or any dot in general right now is absolutely ridiculous. Like, it will just delete you. Any kind of poison, like the Gorgons, that is probably why your friend died. I had my friend, he was like playing like
Oh,
one of the
you mean ailments from the enemies, not ours.
He was
Got it.
well, just any kind of poison damage, like the tornadoes, like the Gorgon tornadoes, the puncture poisons cracked. They did something. Something happened because like it's way worse than it was. Like how much damage they deal. And my friend, he was playing like a level 100 character. He was like all set up. He's playing A bomb. He was playing a really tanky. He had like 10k ward because he was like doing like twisted heart stuff. 5k HP. He had cap poison res. It took one Gorgon tornado to take him to 0, and he died because he was my carry in the T4 Jurla. This was tier 3 Jurla, by the way. He died to like 15k HP with like poison and all that, like EHP and all that. It was hilarious.
It sounds like a skill issue.
Exactly. But yeah, that's the first thing I wanted to mention is
Don't
like
get hit.
if you're having problems with the dungeons, that's why. The Lightless Arbor, it is absolutely broken. They need a nerf hit. Essentially, TLDR, if you don't know, only one person needs to pay for the chest at the end, and all 4 people get the chest. So essentially, you can do like
if you got
money
a party of
runs.
4, it just quadruples.
Yep,
your
and then you can
payout.
trade between the items because they drop. So it's like 20 times the items. It's great. It's like it's insane. Yeah, that needs to get nerfed eventually.
When we first started hearing stories about this, I see Lizard IRL just popped up in Twitch chat. So I think the story that I heard about was coming from him. When people were telling me about this, they're like, yeah, one person pays 2 million gold, and then everybody benefits from it. The first thing that happened when I was streaming and we heard that story is everyone went up in arms. They're like, how could EHG do this? Like, this does, and it's like, this is clearly not staying. Like, don't be mad about this.
Yeah.
This is absolutely not going to stay in the game.
Like when
This is
the
a mistake. It's
Scooby-Doo
not-
split
they're
up
gonna
happened,
fix it
we were
somehow.
laughing our
Yeah.
butts off. It was amazing. Like,
It's like,
whenever
no,
I see a bug,
they
it's
don't
great.
want
It's
you
funny.
to quadruple your
Yeah.
money just by having friends. Like, no, that's
Like-
not intended. Stop
Like
complaining.
speaking of bugs, like I remember I trolled Perry on stream. We were playing Monolith, and in the Monolith, I asked him to go to spawn, like in the end of time, and it like teleports you under the end of time where like the black hole is, and it's like you're in space, and it's like I love bugs, man. I love having them happen. Like even when I got rolled back 20 levels, I was laughing the entire time. It was hilarious. Like I love this kind of stuff, because it adds a new layer to the game, essentially, of like meta knowledge and stuff. But obviously, it's not meant, right, to be like that, obviously.
It does kind of. Sometimes these bugs do bring information out to the community how actually things are like kind of coded and programmed. So even when the
Yeah.
bug is
Behind the
fixed,
scenes.
we understand a little bit more about how things are like interacting with each other and stuff like that.
And it
And that is
lets
the
us
cool aspect of it,
it
right?
lets us bug
Totally.
report easier too because we know how
Yeah.
things work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But like, so this is EHG's rollout plan, which is more of that stealth rollout rather than the big hey everyone log on, right? It's a CT program. It's like this invitational weekend. It's going to be like a full 10 days next week. That clash with PoE, like people wanting to play PoE, as I've been told, right? So it's not trying to draw all the attention when people are bored. It's just trying to get
Yeah.
the attention of people who are more amenable to bugs and understanding where Last Epoch is as a
Yeah.
game at this stage,
Actually,
and doing a 0.9 and not here's 1.0. Go
Yeah.
forth as we run around and do like a lightless arbor bug, or there was a Hungering Souls bug that it got a little bit funny for a second. I don't think I can say that because in the previous version it got fixed right before.
Yeah.
But if you think it's unethical on what you played on the weekend, it was more unethical than that.
Hungering. What I really liked about Hungering Souls build, having the shotgunning projectiles. What would
Yeah.
happen? How did it used to be?
Oh no! So that hasn't changed.
Okay.
But there was just like an interaction. So like, do you know the transplant? How it can now do bone curse?
Yeah.
You could do the bone curse, like the bone prison, and get like 10 minions, right? So you could just transplant around, get like a gazillion minions, and then use like the more damage for minions kind of thing
it
as
was
well.
stupid.
And it was just like it was just.
I'm currently. I guess I was doing that, but I only had up to 33 minions.
Yeah.
One thing I want to mention, by the way, before we move on, I'm sorry. I was supposed to say this at the beginning of the stream. Okay. So originally we weren't going to get to play to end game. We were only going to get a certain amount of content for this invitational thing, but we asked very nicely and they're like, sure. But remember, this is a very buggy, like early state of everything, right? And no complaining, right? Like essentially that's what they said. I want to make that clear, all right? We went into this with full knowledge knowing that these kind of things were going to happen, okay? And you should have that same expectation next week as well.
So we were talking about multiplayer. We talked about getting your mastery at level 1, speed running people, alternate leveling techniques. One thing that I really want to call out about multiplayer that I really, really liked is like respecing your character. So Last Epoch already does respecs very easily. Like the technically the best way to respec something would be, once you're like level 80 or like level 90 doing your empowered monoliths, you do an echo that has the tome of experience. You complete the echo, and then before you pick up the tome, you unspec a skill, spec something else, and then you pick up the tomes and you go boop 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 to get all your levels back on whatever skill that you just respec into. The fact that you might want to respec a skill, or maybe spec into a different skill or spec it differently based on who your party members are, it makes it really, really easy to do that, and you're definitely like paid off for it. So one thing that I personally experienced while I was doing this multiplayer stuff is I had my volatile reversal and I was playing a damage over time build. I wanted to spec my volatile reversal to have the enemies take increased damage over time. But if I all of a sudden have somebody in my party who's playing a hit-based build, I could just change a couple points around, and all of a sudden I'm amplifying the damage of my teammates' hit-based build as well. So like the respec meta, being able to do that, the fact that that's already baked into the core experience of Last Epoch really felt good when it was implemented into multiplayer this past weekend.
Yeah, I had personal experience with that because I was playing support builds all weekend before I played Meteor Bear, and I respec to support Paladin at a very early level, right? Very early level, and I was essentially dead weight. But it didn't matter because Jay was playing Glacier Sword to clear and all that, and it felt amazing being able to like swap into a support build at like level 10 or whatever and like get set up in 10 more levels and not have to worry about killing stuff. You're just there as emotional support. And of course I was putting down javelin, sea heal and stuff like that. But like it was nice being able to respec into a different build thanks to my friend carrying me and killing things for me, so I didn't have to do the work. And then of course we could ping pong on that, of course, if you're like playing 2 damage builds, right? Instead of just being like, oh yeah, I can't make this big like change. Like for instance, Fireball, right? You know how like Fireball takes 20 million points? Well, now instead of like having to like wait until yada yada yada, I just spec Fireball and I wait. I just play with my friend. He kills a few things faster for me, right? A friend of mine, Zeta, he was playing a bleed bear like Briarthorn, and he would just absolutely delete bosses, right? Just delete them. But he had no clear because he was playing a bear build, and I was playing the clear, and it felt amazing there too. And whenever he had to respec something, I was, hey Dread, I gotta like respec this real quick. I'm not gonna be dealing as much damage. It's fine. I dealt damage too. It's great. I like it. I love this.
All of a sudden, you're the carry while he respects the skill and tries something else, and like you
Like
have enough
duoing?
damage. Yeah.
Duoing is a wonderful experience in this game. It's
I
not as
want to
like
say though,
Go ahead.
like one of the bad things, especially for you two guys and a few people in chat as content creators, right? You're already needing to make 3 build guides per video. You've got a leveling build, you've got like a normal one, you've got like a super end game one. Now you need a group play one. So
Well,
there's another build planner that you're gonna have to
not
make per
to-
video, right?
Actually, not to self-promote, well, not to promote someone else, but there's currently right now, there's a few people in chat right now that are sponsored and they're working for Maxroll, and they are working on all this stuff. My full intention is to let Tarek write all the leveling guides, and I'm just going to link it every single time. I don't need to make leveling
God
guides
bless.
anymore. Tarek's going to do it for me. They get the click. I don't have to make a leveling guide. All good.
Someday Tarek might not be the only person who does speedrunning in this game, but for now, he's the hub of a lot of speedrunning knowledge. So God bless.
Yeah.
I need him to do the prime list before March 9. If please, Tarek, hurry up with that one.
Yeah,
I've
how
got an
am I
idea,
supposed
but
to get to-
I need to know the facts.
How am I supposed to get to level 20 as a primalist? Like basic attack and dog, and I'm a homeless person? Help!
Just
All
minions,
right.
man, just minions.
So we've talked about some unique items that really stood out to us, including the belt, which is like the premier example. We talked about some skills and like rework skills, new skills. Primarily Rip Blood was our big example there, but we talked about a couple other things too. Talked about multiplayer, things that felt good, like alternative leveling, the respecing thing that we just mentioned now. That's like the broad strokes of what I wanted to talk about today. We could talk about trade. We could talk about ailment rework or adaptive. The adaptive melee damage change. But I didn't play any melee this past weekend.
Yeah.
Are there other topics that you two want to touch on?
I want to talk about ailments, but my problem is I haven't touched ailments. Have you touched ailments yet, Amarathy?
I am the ailment enthusiast.
Okay, thank God.
Yeah,
Thank God.
of course. That's
So
what I do.
I'm gonna let you talk about the ailment, like literally explain the whole ailment stuff, so I can say what I think is wrong with it.
Okay,
Always.
so the Ailment Manifesto, as Barry put it, is basically they've removed ailment effect, so bleed effect, poison effect, all those kind of things, which takes a more modifier out. Previously, things that existed with that ailment effect have now become like penetration, so it goes into the penetration bucket. That used to be a separate bucket. Like the red shred penetration bucket. So most builds that were an ailment would still have some access to penetration and some access to effect. So if it was like you had 50% effect and 50% penetration, that would be a 2.25 damage multiplier because it's like 1.5 times 1.5. Now those two things are added together, so it's only a 2 times effect. So there is that nerf there, and that is very prevalent. Into the opinion space, I think the right way to go around it was to actually get rid of duration, not effect, because like
I agree.
effect is cool, and I don't think it's this like weird concept that people are like, oh man, bleed effect, I'm a bleed build, do I want this? Like
You want to explain the like the ideology behind the changes they did?
It was just like effect is not intuitive. I disagree. I think that most ARPGs, like you can expect some level of background top-down knowledge.
Guys, we're talking about ailments.
Yeah, we're
Blizzard
talking
really
about
does not
ailments.
like
Yeah.
ailments. We should time him
Yeah.
out for a bit. No, I'm joking.
Yeah. Ailments everywhere. I would say most ailments are kind of like, because poison really got brought down to poison, if it's got an effect, in most circumstances there's a cap on how much that effect can work. So the poison red shred tied to poison is now capped at 30 stacks. I think it's the same for like frostbite and its freeze effect, and that's now a multiplicative thing, which is cool. Like the freeze is actually like in a pretty good spot. But for the most part, it's like it's not going to do this crazy scaling factor and having to need all these different multiple buckets for it to do damage. It's just, it's a little bit
Yeah.
sucky now that like some items are just like ailment with penetration or for these conditions instead of just being like frostbite effect. And that's like a
Yeah.
lot more concise and understandable.
Yeah.
And I
That's
think
like
duration sucks.
Yeah, that's actually something I want to like list on. So I did not play with any ailments. Okay, I did not. I understand the ailment changes, and I have been talking with someone that has been playing a lot of ailments right recently. Not you, Amarathy, someone else. And essentially, his consensus, and I agree with this consensus, right, is the biggest problem with the ailment changes is the reason why I liked ailments and he liked ailments was the gearing for ailments felt a lot more fun than gearing for like, of course, crit or whatever, because you had all these stats to worry about: duration, effect, chance, hit rate, how many stacks you're gonna hit with one, stuff like that, right? And the biggest problem with this change now is all those effect nodes, they're all penetration nodes, and you end up blocking out with like 600% increased penetration. It's like, oh yeah, let me go get some res shred so I get 10% on top of that. And the problem with that is there are some classes that have a gigantic amount of effect slash now penetration on their trees, on their skill trees, stuff like that. And that means, and the problem is, that's also like gear is also where you're supposed to get penetration and stuff like that, right? So what happens is I'm playing a rogue and I have like 600, I have like a gigantic amount of penetration, right? Like a ridiculous amount, right? So much for my skills and passives that it's like ridiculous, right? What the heck do I put on my gear now? Like penetration? Like,
Yeah.
like what am I supposed to
Frostbite
do?
Swarm, like the Snowdrift combo, right? That's
Yeah.
all penetration. Why would I go for the elemental penetration or the cold penetration on the drilled
Yeah.
tree when I've
Or on
Yeah.
gear,
Yeah.
specifically gear, I have problems with it because since the skills give all that, and
Yeah.
like for a rogue, like puncture, you get all the bleed chance, all the penetration, all that. What am I supposed to put on my gear? Increased damage? It's all I put on it. Okay, like it kind of like opens this can of worms, where it's just like what we were talking about, what Lizard was talking about, what we were all talking about. Like we want the items to be better, like the items to be the source of our damage, not the skills. Like at least to like a certain extent, like a ratio, right? This just made it so that your gearing for ailments don't matter at all. Like in a lot of cases, like right?
I think
Like
they've simplified it, which is a good thing. Like I
yeah,
think
that
one
is a
bucket
good thing.
needed to go, but for the most part, it needed to be a thing where I think duration was the thing to get rid of, because the issue with ailments as well is that they can be too strong against bosses, but weak against like regular enemies, and uh, you wanted to like reduce the boss damage, but also provide a lot more upfront damage with ailments so that they could kind of match the clearing speeds of a crit build that can just do that
Duration.
on-man damage. Why would you do like 30k over 3 seconds when you can do a 30k crit right then instantly and kill that enemy?
Yeah.
Duration's a great thing to talk about when it comes to like server performance as well. Like it's just like fewer calculations going on over a fewer period of time, or a smaller period of time. There was a duration change to ailments. Most ailments were doing their damage over 4 seconds or 3 seconds. All the ailments that were doing damage over 4 seconds, they got damage. They got their base damage increased, and the damage went down to 3 seconds instead. And the ailments that were dealing damage over 3 seconds now deal damage over 2.5 seconds. So like they did touch the duration a little bit, but I agree with you. Like having a more damage multiplier like ailment effect, that's just a bucket of more damage that you no longer have access to. And instead you're getting something that gives you penetration, but you already have shred and you already have other sources of penetration. So it did make the gearing process.
Yeah, from
more
what I was
bland.
looking at all the trees, it's obsessive the amount of penetration you get. Like Amarathy, like on your Stormblade build, the Frostbite one. How much penetration do you actually get? Like, do you know?
Oh, I mean, like at the moment, I think I've got like 3K freeze rate, so that works out to be like 600 penetration just from the freeze rate alone.
Why do you need that much?
Yeah.
What if it's a really tanky monster, man?
Well, the problem is there should be no situation in the game where a skill, right, needs 600% penetration to be good, right? Like that's ridiculous. That sounds
Rive
ridiculous.
Ignite, man. Perry, come on, Rive Ignite. 3%
I want to play
physical
Bleed.
penetration.
Stop targeting me. Don't make fun of me. I just want to play VK Bleed. I've got it. I've got my list of builds that I want to try. I want to go Rive. I want to have like VK with all the echoes and double echo chance and more echo damage. And I want to play an Ailment because it sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing I want to do, since we're at the end, right, and we're kind of like running out of topics.
It's a very long lunch break. For I think we should start wrapping up here. Okay.
I wanted to talk about real quick one more thing that like really surprised me, and I really enjoyed it. I had someone play a freeze support mage. Literally, his entire job was to walk into the monolith and freeze everything. And it was one of the best feelings I've ever had in the entire game, in the entire time I've played the game. Right? Because it's like, wait a second. I thought freeze was garbage outside of like snowdrifts and all that, right? Wait, it's actually being useful? And he's like at like 300 corruption, like bunch of extra health, 4 party health, and he's still freezing things? And it's like, oh yeah, it's because I deal no damage. I'm like, it's because like it's great because it's useful. It's useful. Great, man. It's useful. I mean, like that's like support werebear. It has insane CC, right? That's like why I love it so much. But yeah, like you can actually freeze bosses and stuff like that. I don't think you should be able to freeze bosses. I like the way that Torchlight does it, where like instead of freeze, you like get it like a reduced action speed that keeps stacking. I like that more. But like that's a topic for a different day, right? The fact that freeze is useful, I'm all for it. I'm good. I'm happy.
If we want to talk about passive CC, let's just like export the chat to Lizard and get the stun freeze kind of discussion that's been had many times, right? Yeah.
As long as we can avoid stun on players, let's get rid of that. Yeah. Nobody likes it. It's not fun. It's not the 90s anymore.
And dungeon walls.
Dungeon walls. Remove the wall. Oh god.
So as we start wrapping up here, Amarathy, thank you so much for spending your elongated lunch break with us. God bless.
Yeah, we're good. I'll stay late.
And then
like
Dread, thank you as well. Always appreciate having this podcast. I was really looking forward to having this podcast again. I think just like catching up with you, having a podcast.
We can have one on Friday if you want, by the way. I don't mind. We got so much to talk about anyways.
So we have with the Invitational just ended, I guess technically earlier today. The Pack the Server party is starting on Thursday, our time. So that's 10,000 people. If you don't already know, we'll put the link in the description to this video. Yeah, it's
wait, is it this Thursday?
Well. It's this Thursday, yeah, February 2nd.
Oh my god, that's so.
The free weekend's coming up after that. The official release for 0.9 multiplayer, the stuff that we've been talking about today, is March 9th. So, deal. I'm looking forward to it. Sounds excellent. Thanks for being here, Amarathy and Dreadful. I always appreciate Amarathy. It's weird to call you Dreadful. I'm gonna call you Dread. Amarathy and Dread, thank you both for being here. And Twitch chat, whether you're watching here live or YouTube and Spotify watching later on, thank you for being here as well. We'll see you next time.